practice and approach in general is a very mind-body connection, and hopefully you'll see that brought in through the presentation. And I highly encourage it, 'cause it's very important to get connected, because a lot of women who work through these issues tend to have a disconnect from their mind and body, and so we want to get them realigned. So what we're talking about is three different diagnoses. However, there are a lot of other diagnoses that might also fall into these categories relating to female pain and anorgasmia. So vaginismus is the involuntary contraction of the pelvic floor muscles. So the pelvic floor muscles, they're a hammock-like structure that are in men and women that go from the pelvic bone back to the tailbone. And so they hold up our organs, and if you can think about if you are using the restroom, and if you stop the flow in midway, that's when you're contracting your PC muscles. So that's a really great way to help clients get a sense of what that feels like. So a lot of times women are, like I said, really disconnected from their body, that they don't even have an awareness of their pelvic muscles. So even just simply starting to create that awareness can help them in the process of overcoming these challenges. This isn't necessarily a sexual issue. Vaginismus can happen to women who haven't had any sex. It can happen to all different types of women as well, different orientations, because they can experience pain or contraction with gynecological exams, tampon insertion, the use of sex toys, as well as with partners. Dyspareunia, however, the definition of it is pain during intercourse or penetration. I like to think of that as sort of a general way of viewing it. And then anorgasmia is the lack of orgasm, or the inability to orgasm. Let's see if I've got this. Okay. So to start, we're going to try to tackle this complex idea of what causes these issues. There are pros and cons to identifying the cause or the etiology of sexual pain, of vaginismus, of anorgasmia. The pros would be it would be helpful to sort of help guide treatment, but then you also might be spending a lot of time trying to pinpoint the cause, and because it can be a really complex issue, it might be a lot of time and energy spent on trying to figure out what was wrong rather than helping the client move forward. So, and this will be a case-by-case situation, and something that you'll have to take into clinical consideration about what's the most helpful for the client. The overlapping causes is what can be a big challenge, because there could be something that creates the anorgasmia that also creates the dyspareunia, and vice versa. So it kind of is a slippery thing to tackle in your clinical practice, but it might be something that, again, might be helpful for you. When I said that it's complex, it's mainly a lot of issues come from the cultural, societal beliefs about women and their bodies, and messages that these women have received early on in their childhood, and then also as they've grown up. So being able to explore those issues, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but those often have a lot of impact on women in regards to these concerns. Another problem about trying to figure out what the causes are is that predominantly the research and the literature and the information has been from a male-dominated perspective, and has left out sort of the female perspective of it. So there isn't a lot of information. Luckily, there is now. There's more information coming out from a female perspective, which is really great. And I have some information for you at the end of places you might be able to look to find a more female perspective of that. Like I said, there's complex reasons, or there could be really simple reasons. Like, for instance, a woman just might need to hydrate a lot more. And it could be as simple as that. Or it could be complex, like a very oppressive upbringing around sex or sexuality, in addition to chronic yeast infections, and then potentially a really difficult surgery that occurred maybe through childbirth. And so trying to figure out what all of those things could be might make it a really difficult process for you to figure out what the issue is. But it can, again, provide an idea of where to go. A few specifics that I think is really important to keep in mind is that vaginismus, again, is a result of a lot of tension in the muscles and potentially a lack of awareness in the muscles. And dyspareunia is more of a tissue problem. So it's a concern of the actual tissue that's typically on the opening of the vaginal opening, whereas vaginismus is muscular. So if you can keep those in mind, that'll help guide what sort of treatment that you can do, and as you work with medical professionals, that will help you have a sense as well. And then for anorgasmia, unless there is some sort of medical condition, it's typically a psychological cause or a psychological issue that needs to be addressed.